Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman, and we've got a deep conversation on the books for you today. I am here with Adam McInnis, who is the founder of the Billboard 500 Club. So we're going to talk about a lot of music related things today. And the Billboard 500 Club provides Grammy, Platinum, and award-winning music mentorship to an online community of aspiring hitmakers and musicians. And the club also focuses on, this is what's super important to me, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but they also focus on really helping musicians to make a sustainable income directly from their music, which is something that is not happening very frequently right now. And so this is a big shift. This is like an industry shakeup that you are leading here, Adam. So thank you so much for being here. And I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and tell the audience who you are.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. So as you mentioned, we have a company that helps musicians to actually access a sustainable income and be around more conscious musicians who are making music past the reason for attention and fame, but because they actually know it's a calling of theirs. And I think for most musicians, when you wake up with melodies, when you can't get songs out of your head and you try to get them out into the world, it can be very daunting when society tells you should get, quote unquote, a real job. But your job on this planet sometimes is to make music and create that connection with people, because that's a very important thing on this planet, is connecting with each other. It's one of the biggest things of being a human is connection. If you remove humans from each other and we isolate each other, we become sick, we become frail, we lose sometimes our minds if you're isolated. So connection is such a big important part through music. Unfortunately, with the way the business works is there's really no plan that people have showed independent artists how to make a living, but there's formulas that we know we can show people because they work. So in the scale of the music industry, people think, I need a record deal. I need this big deal. I have to become famous. But in today's society, more than ever before, you can be an independent artist and make your own community, like so many people on Instagram do with their small businesses. You can be a small business owner and grow something that allows you to be sustainable, but more importantly, allows you to be able to say no. And this is the important part. As I think a lot of people are coming to, especially in the public atmosphere now, you're seeing what things have been happening from the higher ups in the music industry, the sort of blackmail and control and things they've been doing to their artists in order to hold them under these contracts. And more things are going to come over the next few years because this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that will be released. But what would happen is we have really talented people who give up everything sometimes just to have this goal of a dream, just for someone else to take that dream from them, put them in a cage, and then monetize them until they are no longer have the energy to keep creating. And they just kick them out of the cage and they find another one to put in. Well, if that's the mentality of how the business has been working, a lot of times people change who they are in order to get the goal, let's say, to get to the trophy. But in that change, they sometimes forget who they actually are, and they forget the reason why they were here to do music in the first place. And so they then lose connection to themselves, lose connections to their fans. That's the reason why there's probably artists you remember from 10 years ago that aren't on the radio nowadays, even from 20 years ago, who aren't on the radio. No one talks about them, no one thinks about them. And that loss of connection, I have friends who used to be very successful. It's really tough when people get to a point they realize their record label created who they were. And without the label, they might be a very talented person, but they don't understand the business. They don't understand how to be sustainable. They don't know these things. So unfortunately, they usually get other jobs, and usually they're not as happy in those other jobs. So what we do is we have a team of Grammy Award winners and team of #1 songwriters and producers and entertainment lawyers and executives who show the upcoming generation how to be sustainable. So you never have to sign a deal you don't want. So you can build your own leverage. So you don't have to sell your soul in order to make the music you love. And If you love the music you're making, your fans will love your music. You'll have a thriving company. More important, I think you have a very fruitful life. And what I've noticed is that there's a thing that happens where people like to chase happiness,
Hmm.
but they don't realize until they attain the thing that they thought they want that it was not always fulfilling. What we try to do is help people get fulfillment, because if you can create fulfillment over and over and over again, that builds into a real legacy. Because happiness of shiny things, once you get shiny things, they fall after a way. You're like, okay, why do I want this anymore? So that's exactly what I do, is I help musicians with that. And I'm a professional producer, songwriter, artist. I've been full-time in music now for 20 years. I'm featured on some of the biggest soundtracks and TV shows and commercials. um, I've been very, very blessed to be behind the scenes in the biggest parts of the music industry and still be able to walk out unscathed. And so I'm able to take this information and share with other people of how to navigate this as eloquently and as nuanced as they possibly can, because there's a lot of cracks and a lot of, snakes in the business.
So what I'm hearing, and what I want to reflect as well, is that you are literally teaching people how to take their talent, their craft. Usually, with especially with musicians, you break onto the scene, right? Oh, this brand new artist. No, that person has been honing that
Yes.
for their entire life, most of the time, right? This is musicians. It's usually born early. It's born inside of you, and it's just something that is when you are a professional musician, it's because it has to come out of you, right? It's this expression inside that you can't help but let out. And what you're doing is you're creating a space where these artists can actually be like, I don't like to use the word control, but in control of their destiny, in
No,
control
we
of their
we help
life.
them become this. We help them become the CEO of their actual music company, and
Yeah.
that's the part that. So first, I will say this: I was not born a musician. I didn't sing until I was after college. I was
Wow.
told I was tone deaf by the vocal coaches I went to, because I thought I was in college and I thought, okay, I might want to sing. I went to two very well-known vocal coaches, and they both told me, no, you're tone deaf. I didn't know I was tone deaf. I thought when I'm singing in my shower that maybe it's kind of close. No, I was horribly off from the key that existed. Uh, I had a dream, as crazy as it sounds, but I prayed one night asking God, what should I do with my life? And I was shown a very vivid vision that I still can remember to this day. That's 20 years ago, of me playing on stage with a guitar and singing. And there was people singing back words. And I thought, okay, that sounds so far fetched, but I'm going to give that a shot. I learned by using a trick. And once again, this trick sort of was told to me, not by a person, but like said, Adam, go do this, which was to sit in a dark room and practice hitting the notes on the keyboard, and don't listen to your voice, listen to the vibration of your body when you are looking for a note. It's going to create like a wave, kind of like when you're tuning a guitar. You can hear it when it's sharp and you can hear it when it's flat. Try to find a place where it feels smooth. And so I would practice like that for hours at a time, just hitting notes on a keyboard, till eventually I started to develop pitch, relative pitch, and now I have perfect pitch, but it was like,
Wow.
or closest to perfect pitch that you can have. But that's what got me realizing, wait a second, the human voice is so fascinating, because we are probably one of the only beings on this planet that can go from a whisper to sing opera. So we have this massive tool, but most people never exercise it, because
No.
they think if they sing too loud, they're, oh, you're too loud over there. They'll quiet down. So everyone's being told to be quiet unless you're a professional or unless you
Mm.
sound really good. But if you don't sound good, don't you dare sing. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a weird thing to put on people in these really unique experiences we have on this planet. And then say, if you're not professional or you don't sound good, then you're not allowed to do the thing that you're innately or gifted with. So I just kind of went on this hunt of, let me figure out music. It's something that I was kind of being pulled towards. And through that, I started to understand the part of, most artists don't look at themselves as the product or the things they make as a product, but they're hoping that someone else will.
Mm.
And when I figured that part out, I'm going, okay, why are there so many of my friends who are so talented, but they're hoping someone else tells them they're talented? And if I tell them they're talented, they don't really hear it unless the guy or the woman is in a suit and has money or it works at a company. Then they believe they're more talented. And then they're looking for that person to help them sell their products. How does that make any sense? And so the more I would kind of question people, I started to realize that it was sort of told to us through all the movies. And I started to look at the movies that we were being shown. And I realized they had the same exact plot. And I'm not joking when I say this. I mean, it's the same exact plot. It goes like this. There's a flashback of a kid singing in the mirror or going around the house, and the parents are fighting, and they go in their room and they can get lost looking in the mirror and singing with their hairbrush or something that they're looking into, or they're writing lyrics in a book, and it's always something they do in the corner on their bed at night. Then they become an adult and they're with a friend at karaoke or some bar or some place. So you're smiling because you already know you're thinking of films already. And they go on stage and the friend's like, you got it. And they're like, I'm not sure if I should go. No, you got it. Go up there. They go on stage, the light hits them from the side, and there's always like a silhouette, and they can't really see people in the audience. It's a little dark. And they go on, they tap the microphone, and it always feeds back. And they're like, hi. And it's like, and it starts getting loud. And someone in the audience goes, oh, geez, sing already. Like there's always some kind of heckler. The music starts. They sort of fumble the first few words, and then they start to sing a little bit. And the friend's like, you can do it. You can do it. They start to sing. Then a voice or a flashback of a relative who believes in them or something comes. It's like grandma or someone who's like, you just got to let go. And it's some metaphor. Then all of a sudden they open their eyes and they're singing like these notes they never even realized they could hit. And the audience is speechless and they're hitting these big things, and the song ends and it's always silence. And the person singing there, like, they don't know if they sang it good or not. They hit the biggest note of their life, but they're not sure if they sang it right or not. And all of a sudden there's a pause, and then people are like, woo. And then all of a sudden people start standing. The person shocked that they ever did it, which means they weren't practicing, because you wouldn't be shocked by your performance if you were practicing.
Yep.
You get down off the stage. The friend grabs them, says, oh my God, that was so amazing. I don't even know how you did that. They're like, I don't even know how I did it either. And then happens to be at the bar is a manager in a leather jacket or some sort of thing. And they're either from England or from New York, and they're fast talking. And they're like, hey, here's my card. You should come by the studio. The rest of the movie is their ride to success and their ups and downs through drugs and rock and roll and sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's every single movie when it comes to the music industry.
Yeah.
So I understand where people go when you're going for information on any topic. If you don't have people around you who've done that thing, the only thing you can look at are movies, especially before YouTube. Mm-hmm. So you're just like watching movies and you're going, okay, I think that's how it has. And you read a book, and the book is like talks about things like this. You're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe that's what I need. Now, the unfortunate part about this is a lot of people who are in the music industry, most people who don't find success, they'll say, oh, well, the music industry is all about who you know. And I'm like, well, no, it's about who knows you. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. And more importantly, who trusts that you can deliver a product and a service and a performance that will garner money. So it's not about who you know. And more important, most of the people who are in the music industry at the top, their parents were in it. Their cousins are executives. They had a lot of money invested in them from their family. They started when they were 5 years old. They had the best mentors. They were mentored by the best vocal coaches and the best choreographers. And they were on TV shows like Miley and Ariana and Jessica Simpson and Demi Lovato. And like we can go through Justin Timberlake and Usher and Adam Levine, all these people. And you go, oh, so they had mentors. They looked at it like a business. They practiced their craft. Wait, and they were a business. And so what happens is people see this dream thing in the movies, but they don't know the reality is something completely different. So what we do is we remove the dream. We say, have big goals, think big, act big, and you'll find a resonance between the two. But if you just dream big and you don't act big, well, it's just going to be a thing you're always trying to chase. And unfortunately, you get to a certain age and you realize you never achieved it, and you'll probably get depressed. So what we try to do is actually align those two things.
Mm. One of the other things that, when we were, kind of riffing before we started recording, we're talking more about, like, the music industry itself and kind of what it does to artists, that chews them up and spits them out. And that dream, on that other side of, like, making it big and having the big house and traveling and having the beautiful spouse or, bands all clamoring to hear you, like, that dream can be really enticing,
Yes.
and at the same time, it's such a small percentage of who
Hmm.
actually, makes it that big. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it is a very small percentage. So I wanted to back up just a little bit
Yeah.
and share just like I don't know if I've shared this much on the podcast. I maybe have before. Someone can tell me. But my degree, my is actually in flute performance. And so it's not in finance. Financial planning wasn't really a degree back when I was in college. Um, but I was a flute player. I'm a musician. I grew up a musician. My mom sang all the time. She sang at church.
Mm.
She played the piano. It was just, music was in my house and in me. My all of my siblings played instruments too. And my husband is also a musician and he got his degree in music as well. And so we
Mm.
grew up in this, kind of microcosm of music. Not necessarily like the recording artist dream, like that wasn't my dream, but I did have, dreams to teach and play and be just involved with music in my life. And I did see from my vantage point in the classical music world, it was there was kind of a similar pipeline of like really like pouring your heart into it, really trying a lot, like going for it, going big and still never making it, right? And, like, people spending their whole life or especially their 20s and 30s, like,
Yeah.
going after this thing and it never actually working out and having, um there's a lot of guilt and shame and, like, just like you were saying, depression that can really set in for a lot of people when it doesn't work. And so I love that you're creating this path, right? Because we can talk a little bit more about that. Music can be used and is used so many different ways. It's not just do you get on a stage and play at Madison Square Garden for, 40,000 people. That's not the only way to do music and to
Yeah.
make money, a sustainable income in that way and a sustainable income in a way that feels good and feels aligned and is impacting people for the better, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, like, can we talk about that a little bit? That we were like, you're creating
Sure.
a path.
Well, I think too, there's so many different facets to the thing you just said. So I'm going to try to compartmentalize a few of them because when we see this like whole sentence and we break down actually the words and defragment them a little bit, I think the picture gets a little bit clearer. So first and foremost, the idea of fame is usually usually pinned together with excess of income. So people
Mhm.
think, oh, famous, lots of money.
Yep. Yeah.
But then you do some research and you watch videos of artists say, yeah, when I won those Grammys, like TLC, there's that famous video of them getting their Grammys and saying, we're broke.
Mm,
They were just one of the artists at the time who did that. But you start going through and you're like, wait a second, wait, how is this person broke? And how is that person broke? And if you really dig, you realize how many well known artists are broke or were broke when they were getting the most amount of their fame. So if that's the case, that means there's something going on. And I think enough musicians or even people have heard over times like, you got to watch out for music contracts. Well, if the industry was so well done and also so trustworthy, why is everyone telling you watch out for contracts? It's because they hide things in contracts because a lot of the people are there to make money off of your work.
mhm,
So think about this. Let's imagine you created a financial planning book that people really enjoyed reading. And if people said, hey, watch out because the contract that the book publisher's going to give you is not going to most likely be in your favor, watch out. You'd have a lot of people like, hold on, time for us to really get lawyer up and let's figure this thing out. It's very rare that people have to watch out in an industry when if it's their product they're making. But the music industry, that's something you really have to pay attention to. The second part is fame of yesterday is not fame of today.
Mm-hmm.
Fame of today means you're going to be stalked and it's legal for people to stalk you, which is insane. People can go to your house, they can watch your kids, they can videotape them from outside, and that could be looked at as a way of them selling pictures of you and your family and getting information on you. That kind of fame isn't fun. There's no one that I know. I have a lot of friends who are A-list celebrities. There's no one who says this is a joy anymore to be in the public spotlight because the energy has changed and shifted of how people monetize your celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
So you work hard and other people monetize off of you. See, no one is monetizing off of your daily life right now. It's you and your family. But imagine if there was 30 people who make a living from you doing what you do. And their only reason why they're making a living is to find you when you slip and fall and at your worst. That's a weird society.
Yeah.
Who signs up for that kind of job? So the idea of fame has changed. Also, now more than ever, you can find great musicians. Like people show me musicians all the time. I had no clue even existed. And they have millions of followers. And I just go, who is this? And I listen to their music. I'm like, this is actually really good. I look into them. I'm like, oh, they're independent or they're signed to a small label. So it really doubles down on the idea of you don't need to be world recognized in order to be successful. You might not even want to have that sort of recognition if you want to be able to go into restaurants and eat and be just a normal person. You might not want that. And then if you can make a sustainable living without cutting in all the people, if I think about this, because one of my mentors was like, he's like, listen, Adam, when you get offered a record deal, don't even ask a lawyer before you ask this one question. He said, ask them, how many units do I have to sell in order to break $1 million? If they tell you some crazy number, like you need to sell 30 million units, then you just laugh because you know it's impossible. So you're trying to find what's actually accessible to become a millionaire. Because once you get $1 million, especially if you live in California at the time, he was like, you're going to get taxed. So you're going to get that hit. He's like, then you have to pay your manager 15 or 20%. You have to pay your business manager 5-10%. You might be paying your lawyer 5%. So, and then you have to pay for producers, studio time, all this other stuff. So by the time you get that $1 million and what you see in your pocket, you might only see $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the way the business is orchestrated, if I wanted to get $1 million investment from a bank or from some private, like maybe a hedge fund or some private investors, if I was going to do that, they don't own me. They might have a percentage of the product and the sales and they can buy into the company, but they don't own my name. Mm-hmm. With record deals, when you sign it, they own your name. That's something that I don't think any other business has. So when we really go into this thing, we go, okay, what's fame and what's it worth? Is it worth the cost today? And I would say no. And another reason is you can look at people like on The Voice, on American Idol. Most people don't know what happens to artists after they win The Voice. There's not a bunch of people walking around. They're like, oh yeah, they won The Voice. That's why it's very, very rare. But the show is called The Voice, which means they're looking for the best voice. Then what happens to these artists? And so what they've done is they created this side of the industry that's just for entertainment. It has nothing to do with singing. It has nothing to do with songs. It has to do with you looking at them and going, oh, wow, they're so good. Okay, on to the next season. Oh, look, they're so good. On to the next season. So fame and that idea of notoriety through your talent is now disposable. They've created disposable people. So that's the first part. I would just say, is fame the same thing as what it was? And the answer is no. What I feel like is the future, and it's the reason why I think AI can be very beneficial, is the same exact things that a record label used to do. Marketing, branding, helping you with your revenue, like distribution, business analytics, where to save money, where to invest money, those sort of things. Product development, pitching, and a quality of filtration of your music. I think AI will be able to do all those things within the next year or two. So you could be a sovereign musician with a team of friends, a couple AI apps, and run the whole entire company outside of getting an investment you can have every single thing that a record label would do. And I think to me, that's way more powerful for also sanity, because then you can teach that model to your child. See, that's a repeatable model. You
Right.
can't teach how to become, you can show, like Billy Ray Cyrus can say, hey, Miley, do it like this. And we'll become, and that's a very rare thing where there's a parent and there's a child. But you can teach a kid, like, okay, I built my music business. I can show you how to do it too. And if it runs in our family, we can sell products and we can build the whole thing around us. That to me is way more sustainable for the next generation. And in that, I think there'll be better people making music, because a lot of people now who make music are, when I say low vibrational, they are just out for attention.
Mm.
That's all they want. They want likes and clicks, and that's the main goal of their reasoning. And unfortunately, when that's in the mass population, like there's 11 million creators on Spotify, but only 225,000 have more than 10 songs.
Oh, wow.
So it shows that over almost around 10 million plus could care less about making more than 10 songs. They just want attention.
Mm. That actually, that's really similar to podcast stats, right? It's
Mm,
like 90% of the podcasts that were started in, I don't know, 2020, 2021, there's like 2 million podcasts. 90% didn't have more than 3 episodes. Of the 10% that remained, 90% of those didn't have more than 20. Right. So to be in the 1%,
you just got to
of
beat that.
you just had to have more than 20 episodes. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Uh, and I think the other parallel there is that, like, there has to be a desire for it, right? More than, like, the attention is not it.
No.
It's not about the attention. It's about, are you creating, and this for me, this literally this podcast is like,
Yeah.
how do I get to connect with people?
Yeah.
Right. And how is that genuine connection being able to then, touch other people's lives? How does this conversation that we're literally having right now go on to have a ripple effect for others and
Yeah.
create positive thought patterns, positive impact, give them spark an idea of like, oh yeah, this, like, I need to share this with this other person. I need to share this with my
Mm-hmm.
buddy who is a musician. Like, oh, have you ever heard of this? Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the purpose for me. And if it comes with, okay, like, people know who I am in some, little microcosm of a niche, that's great. I feel like the definition you're giving of fame right now, I think, is really like it, or the definition of celebrity, I think, is,
Yeah.
I've heard that that's shifting a lot. Like, the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they do not
Yeah.
care about
No.
celebrity. It's like, who's
No.
there, like, who's the person that they care about, and it's like a YouTuber or a
It's Mr.
TikToker.
Beast. It's someone, Mr. Beast, who's doing, yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
who they're watching. It's basically who's captivating their attention. That
Mhm.
is, so this basically goes down to Dunbar's law. That's what it all breaks down to. So Dunbar's law is the theory that our brains evolved to be able to hold 150 names and faces because we used to be in small tribes.
Mhm.
So marketing is really just that. They're trying to get your face in front of people so that the person identifies you as being one of that 150. And based on your hierarchy of needs of information or value that you give that person, you move up that rank of how close you are to them. And that's the reason why people will say, oh, did you hear so and so had a kid with so and so? And they're talking about some celebrity. I'm like, I don't care. Or do you see so and so cheated on so and so? I'm like, I don't know these people. I don't care. But that person is telling me because in their mind, it's part of their tribe. Now,
Mhm.
the reason why that's happened is because we've become more disconnected, especially in the West. And so, because of the disconnection, people leave, they go to college, they start a family on the other side of the country. That wasn't normal before. So our tribe gets separated. And then some people don't know the names of the neighbors of their apartment in Los Angeles or in New York. So they don't even know who they're around in their tribe. So they start to find tribe in community groups on Facebook, on Instagram, on Reddit, or celebrity, because it's basically who you're seeing the most of and feeling like there's a connection through a it'd be like a
Parasocial.
symbiotic relationship, so
Yeah.
parasocial relationship, symbiotic relationship through what they're doing. In some cases, they might be acting out a dream that you had. So
Mm.
therefore you get to vicariously live through their eyes. And that's what I think most of it has become through this celebrity, which is actually really unfortunate, because some of the people, I really don't know why others follow them. Like, I have no clue why people follow Kim Kardashian. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. I look at this and I go, what is the benefit that you get from following this archetype? Because it seems like there's a lot of things that are processes that aren't working out for the person's benefit. And it's continual patterns of it. Not talking about money. I'm talking about patterns of relationships and what they have to do in order to make that money, and the way their kids will be affected by the things that they do. To me, I look at these things and go, it makes no logical sense. But to others, are like, I have to follow that blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we talked about this a little bit before we started too, that sense of literally the frequency, right, that we
Mm-hmm.
are putting out, and how that is affecting. The way that I see that, I think the Kardashians are a great example, right? When they're feeding off of strife and drama and, hurting each
Yeah.
other, and like when that's the thing that they're doing in order to get attention, and then people,
Mm-hmm.
viewers are paying attention to that, then what we are seeing, then we're going to look for that in our own lives as well.
Exactly. Exactly. I think, okay, so I think that's the key, is that now this is a much bigger concept, but if I wanted to take over the power of the world, right? I know this is a big concept, but I'll boil it down. I would start with controlling the West, because the West is the most influential media transfer. When I say media, meaning medium of information that goes out into the world, and the rest of the world will repeat it. And if I can take hold of the minds of the people there, especially just a few, that I can accelerate their growth and make them seem like they're idols. If I can do that with enough smoke and mirrors, I can, in a sense, transfer enough information around the whole entire world that would say, if you act in this way, you will get X.
Mhm.
Even though X is a lie, it's actually a trap. I could trap people with that idea if I just take probably like something like 500 people, put them to the state of fame, but don't tell you, like, you not being able to cognitively understand how they're successful. Right. If you're not able to understand it, if you're like, well, I don't understand why she's successful. Like, what has she really done? And like, I don't know. Well, that puts people in a state of confusion. And so you're like, well, I guess I just got to try getting attention, because attention means maybe I'll get that thing that she has,
Yeah.
even though the thing that she has keeps falling down and broken apart, and 3 or 4 marriages and all these kids, and like, and fighting all the time, even though, but I want the attention. And I think that goal, and I break this down to more of like a good and evil thing. If I want to spread a lot of evil in the world, all I have to do is get the media of the West. That's it. Because once I do that, everyone else will follow, because the West created the media sources. We
Mm.
created the radio, we created the TV, and we created the internet. So we are the starting founders of the transmission of how
Mm.
people should act in alignment by you visually or audibly hearing something and repeating it. We created that. And so I think it's a much bigger play. I think this has to do with where the world's going, and how to put people in a state of confusion. Because the archetypes and the idols that people look up to, a lot of them, you sometimes you can't comprehend why they're that successful. It's like, well, I don't even understand it. It doesn't make sense. They haven't really done anything that's that great. They're a
Mhm.
billionaire, but it's not that great. I mean, it's good music. It's not that great. You know what I mean? It's confusing.
Right. Yeah, and then when I love what you're bringing into the conversation here, is that when there's confusion, where confusion exists, we our brains are wired to look for a pattern, right?
There you
Okay,
go.
it has to be somewhere. There has to be something. And so
Yep.
like we emulate, right? Or try to
Yes. Yep.
make it okay. Like, well, they're successful, so it had to be okay somehow.
It has to be right.
Yeah.
It has to be right. And I think that's the part that's tricky, is this idea that if you make money, it's good when it's done in a big public forum. But
Mm.
we can say, well, then is a drug dealer on your corner good? Be like, well, no. Well, but you can say that person's not good, but the person selling manipulative things, like using their power to be manipulative and they make money, that's good. Or the person who is backstabbing people or taking, like, that's good, but that one's not. And so I really think there's this idea that any money is good money. And we all know that on a personal level, it's not. But if it's famous people doing it, then it's like people just go, oh, it's okay. And so, yeah, I think right now more than ever before, though, and I think the good thing about it is, at least in our communities, I know people are waking up to this. People are like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. If I'm going to follow a map, it's not just how to get to the treasure. It's how do I get to the treasure and stay sane when I get it and be able to give it to my family, my friends, and then hopefully build something from it, not just get the treasure. Because I'm seeing a lot of people get the treasure and then fall apart and break, and who are suicidal and depressed, anxiety. So it's the treasure doesn't actually give you the things you thought it did. I think enough people are starting to wake up because they can watch YouTube and they can see someone say, I've made $500,000 or I made $500 million and I'm not happy. They can see people say this now and say, oh, okay, wait a second.
Yeah.
Time to rethink this plan.
Yeah. And that's so perfect. I think that's a perfect place to stop this conversation for the moment, even though I want to keep going because there's like we could have like a 3 or 4 hour conversation, I think, easily and keep going. But there's such a parallel there. In the work that I do as well. Just again, like creating sustainable, aligned results that feel like you are bringing your best into the world and that it's creating a positive ripple effect. And but I'm so thankful truly to know that you exist and that Billboard
Thank you.
500 exists, like all of that. Like um it's a healing space that the world needs. And we need music, we need musicians, we need artists, we need creatives. We need them and we need to value them as well so that they can continue to create the art that we all literally all of us need at like a cellular level and at a
Yep.
community level and bringing us together. So I would love for you to share how can people find out more about you and the
Mm,
company and get a hold of you? What's coming up?
sure. So if they want to apply, you have to join the wait list to be a part. If you're a musician and you want to be around a great community of people from all around the world who are top musicians and producers and songwriters, and if you want to get mentored by Grammy Award winners and really find I will tell you this: there is a secret of sacred geometry embedded in every single hit song.
Mm,
Once I show someone what it looks like, you can't unsee it. It's almost like a code that people, even who've been producing for 30 years, come to us and then I show it to them and their minds are just like blown away because they've been making music and have worked with record labels for many years. But once I show them the geometry, they see it in every single song.
mhm,
So I would say if someone's interested in learning that like deeper level of their craft, they can go to the billboard500.com and they can search it on Google. They can join the wait list and they can apply if they want to be around this community. As far as things that I'm working on, I'm in a lot of different spaces where I'm working with conscious musicians and I'm trying to build the industry around conscious music because I think that's the next phase will be artists going, wait a second, I really want to think about what I'm saying and not just write catchy songs. And they're going to be more conscious about that. So we have a company that's based in Nashville and Costa Rica. We host private events where musicians can heal, but then also create together. But that's more of a private thing. So we'll be releasing some of the videos and the music from these experiences, which are completely, we haven't talked about this on this podcast, but that to me is going to create a ripple effect that I
mm.
don't even think the world knows is coming. But yeah, that's what I'm here to do is really help musicians. And I have a band called Sons of Legion. If anyone gets a chance, check out that music. We're featured in on TV show Lucifer. We're featured on NBC. We're working on a new Ram commercial. So if you hear our music, which is more like rock soul music, you can say, "Oh, that's Adam singing." I've heard him talk on the podcast, and now I can put a voice to the name.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for
Thank
being
you, Hannah.
here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was such an amazing conversation. And if anyone has any questions, if this sparked anything for you, I would love to hear what resonates for you. And of course, Adam would love to hear from you as well. You can reach out. All of the information that we talked about will be in the show notes for you to have that contact info. So thank you
Great.
again. And I hope we get to talk again soon.
My pleasure, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.